So welcome to tonight's live chat, the Sustainable Health live chat. And we have with us today Sandra Fleming, who's a social worker who works in Brooklyn. And she's actually just gotten out of work and she's on her way home. And we're very happy to have her. And I will put us back on a gallery view. We've got Noelle from Arizona, from Tucson, and we've got Tamer in West Virginia, and everybody else is here from Queens and Long Island. So, it's good to have everybody here. We were supposed to do this 2 weeks ago, but there was a domestic terrorist attack on the Capitol building. And we were going to talk about fear and anxiety. And instead, we were kind of just experiencing it. We had an informal chat here on the live chat. But tonight, we actually are going to have Sandra Fleming with us. And so she and I and a couple of other people who got on early were talking a little bit about, because I was flying around the house this afternoon like a little bit crazy and thinking, why am I doing this? And Marcia mentioned something about PTSD. And, when the threat finally goes away, you fall apart. And I don't know, you must know a lot about that as a social worker, Sandra. I'm gonna let you speak to that if you are comfortable doing it.
Okay, let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety is when you have fear, when there's no actual danger. So you're sitting still and all of a sudden you feel like, I gotta get the hell out of here. You just feel a sense of terror. Then you may have a panic attack coming on. So the body has flipped on our response as animals to a dangerous situation, a threat to our life. And it's called the fight or flight response in humans, right? Such as a porcupine will have quills or octopus will have ink. Our response is for the body to fill the large muscle groups with oxygenated blood so we could either fight off our prey or get the hell out of there. So if the body pulls that fire alarm and there's no actual danger at hand, then it is anxiety, and the person's body has gone into a panic attack. So we can get into later how you can reduce the symptoms of that panic attack and what the symptoms are. But when you say PTSD, that is when the person has actually experienced a life-threatening event and the body now is in a high state of alert. Think of a dog that's been hit too much, and every time you look at them, their tail is far between their legs and they're darting from left to right. So the body, in the most primitive area of our brain, responsible for breathing and other automatic body functions, has turned up our response to fear high because the body has actually experienced a life-threatening event. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be our own life-threatening event. It can be trauma experienced by somebody in our orbit.
And of
grew
course,
up in households of parents who experienced the war.
Right.
I'm sorry, was somebody?
No. I was just saying yes.
So PTSD is a syndrome. Yeah, so it's a syndrome. There's a set of symptoms, a set of responses that a person will have when the body's sensitivity to danger is really at a high level. Now, most of us who experience any kind of trauma, car accident, sudden death, we will typically experience PTSD for about 6 months. But it becomes complicated PTSD when it alters our life. You might have a traumatic death where, we have a patient who will get up every day and they're cooking breakfast for the deceased person every day and leaving the food on the table for 2 years. Now that person has not adapted to that depth, and now it is causing some issues in their life. Or my 9/11 people who just decided I'm not going to work anymore, whether they had an income or not. So people won't take the elevator anymore because they're afraid of heights, or so you get the picture. We will all have a natural response to trauma, but it gets to the point where it is no longer functional, but it is enduring. So that is PTSD. It was a lot of the work done around PTSD developed out of men in war. They called it shell shock. That was the first definition. It grew out of the work done around military men, and they initially called it shell shock. So
that's when occupational therapists got their start, working in World War I with the shell shock veterans, actually.
Yep, World War I, exactly. Yep. So, but it is a natural response. It's how, it's our ability to adapt once we've had, and it's accumulative too. You might have had a trauma when you were young, a really severe trauma, but you were resilient as a child. And then when you got older, you had a lesser trauma, but you're not as resilient, and and now you're not adapting well. Because the body's like, oh, hell no, this could really happen. It happened again,
Yeah. What about like watching trauma like daily on the TV, the way, we've kind of been doing, particularly the last couple of weeks. And, people refer to doom scrolling. Where do you think that fits in?
It might, I haven't done a lot of research on that, but there is a lot of research because of the violence of the games that the children play. So there's a lot of research about that. But I wonder, to me, that's a chicken and an egg, because I find that people will start pursuing that stuff when they've had a trauma, almost to prove the point why I shouldn't go out anymore. The world is just that dangerous. So the person is already experiencing PTSD, and they're looking for ways to justify their dysfunctional or their inability to adapt to their new landscape of having been traumatized.
Right. That makes sense. Do you know anything else? When I was researching the Sustainable Health book, and before that, when I was teaching groups of therapists that work with kids with autism, so that flight or fight response, the muscles fill with blood, oxygenated blood, and you're either ready to fight or you're ready to get out of Dodge fast. But it's it can go either way, and it's pretty much the same physiological response. It's just you're either running or fighting. But then I learned there was another one called freeze, the freeze response, and that's when you can't get away from the trauma. And that's when you, there's two actually, the freeze, fight, flight, freeze, that's when you play dead, basically. And
deer in the headlights.
Yeah, deer in the headlights, or you play dead. And a number of people have survived incredible life-threatening situations in war, and women who've been raped and stuff who have survived because people thought they were dead.
The fight or flight. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that's kind of a more serious trauma in my mind. I don't know if you know anything about that, but my kids with autism, I realized were, and partly I realized it because I think I heard another, attended some workshop where a professional had said something, a psychologist probably, but that part of their shutting down is inability to assimilate information and tell whether they're in a safe or a dangerous place. So there was that freeze response. And then there's another newer one that I've heard about, and I don't know, and I kind of stumbled across it as I was working on the book, and I was listening to, can't remember, his name will come to me. Anyhow, he was saying that there's a fawning response. So there's like, you have the autonomic system, which goes into fight or flight or calm. But then there's this nerve called the vagus nerve that runs from the base of the brain all the way, mostly through the digestive organs. And it is mostly a sensory nerve. So it mostly tells you the status of your internal organs. And it goes to the base of the brain. So it doesn't really get to the conscious part. But what it does is it interrupts the fight or flight response and gives you a chance to actually engage in playful communication. It's part of what enables mammals to feed their young, because you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to overcome the desire to get as far away from somebody who is that close to you, which is true for a lot of animals who don't have this response, which is mammalian. The vagal nerve is a mammalian response, but they call it fawning. And it occurred to me, like when I was reading about it, was just when they were having that Kavanaugh hearings, and people were saying, well, why didn't the woman who brought the complaint against him, why didn't she respond? Why didn't she complain? Why didn't she do this? And one of the things is that, I think, is that fawning response. And it was also all that hashtag Me Too movement, people talking about that. And I thought, oh, that's exactly it. It's like you can't get away, and you can't play dead, but you can negotiate. That's when you start negotiating. So I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Sandra?
Well, I was just going to talk about the simple fight or flight, because you went
Okay,
into
yeah.
a lot of the variables, but just talk about the plain one.
Yeah, that's easier.
So some of the things that'll happen to the body is our eyes will dilate to let in more light. Digestion will shut off, so that because digestion uses so much energy, so people will feel nauseous. Of course, we'll breathe heavy to bring in that oxygen. So it's a lot of chest breathing. Will become slippery. Some people will start to quiver because now they have all this stored and pent up energy and they're not actually using it. Some people become lightheaded because they're breathing so heavy that they're bringing in more carbon dioxide than they are oxygen, and they'll get a little lightheaded. So you're nauseous and you're lightheaded and you're sitting there quivering. Fingers will curl up and constrict. So it is, and that fight or flight response for many people can be to subconscious messages of fear or unconscious messages of fear. There's a story I remember hearing about a lady who she'd go to her dentist's office, and every time she went there, she had a panic attack, and she couldn't figure it out. And come to find out that the dentist's office was wallpapered in a similar wallpaper of her childhood bedroom where her dad had abused her. So it would trigger an unconscious panic attack. So again, they're conscious or unconscious. And there are some real effective tools, people tell me, to respond to a panic attack. So we can talk about that if people want to know more about that.
Well, I just want to, because that was really good information. So when you're in that fight or flight state, so digestion shuts down, which can make you feel nauseous, or actually sometimes people actually do throw up because it makes you lighter. If you're going to run, you don't want to have a full stomach. And the slipperiness, like the sweat breaking out when you said slippery, the fingers curling up, breathing heavy, so you get lightheaded because you're taking in more carbon dioxide than oxygen. So those are all the symptoms. So what are the tools for dealing with that?
Well, the first thing is you have to acknowledge that you're actually not in danger. Remember, a panic attack or anxiety is when there's no actual danger. So you have to take inventory. Hey, am I actually in danger? You have to identify what's going on, because of course we need that response if there's a bear, right? If there's a bear,
Right.
if there's actual danger, if there's a truck coming towards you, you need to run. So,
Right.
So you have to assess first if there's danger. And, you want to start bringing the body down by noticing your breath. If everybody could put their hand on their belly right now and tell me if their belly is moving, if the hand is moving up and down with your hand on your belly. That's our natural state of breathing. When we're nervous, the hand would be moved up to just above our breast in the middle of our chest. That's that chest breathing you get. So I tell some people, if you put your hand on your belly and try to get back to natural breathing, not deep breathing, but just notice that you're actually breathing, how you're breathing, how you are breathing, because you're trying to distract from those scary thoughts that were the catalyst for that panic attack. So to notice whether you're in danger or not. The next one is to not leave. If you leave, of course, there's going to be a sense I got to get the heck out of here. But if you leave, you'll start to have conditions. You'll associate the place you are as a place that causes anxiety, and then people will stop not going. Oh, every time I get on the bus, I have a panic attack. I can't take the panic attack, so I can't go. I can't take the bus. The buses are too scary for me, and they feel embarrassed, and they just won't take the bus. Next time they're in the movie theater, I can't go to the movie theater. So what happens? Their life starts to close in,
Mm.
right? So don't leave. Don't leave. Next thing, notice your breath. Notice your breath. Um, you want to do some healthy distraction, right? This is one school of thought, is healthy distraction. Another school of thought is to mentally go towards the anxiety. Think it through, to go towards it. All right, I'm afraid. What am I afraid of? Just like really just intensely go mentally go towards the anxiety. And the other school of thought is a healthy distraction. A healthy distraction. Some people, if it's not a severe panic attack, might use uh, word games such as every animal that starts with the letter A, every animal that starts with the letter B, every animal that starts with the letter C. Other people just have somebody talk at me. You might want to have that healthy distraction be something that is as intense as the feelings that you have. Some people can sit down and reorganize their CD their CD collection, but if you're having a really heavy panic attack, it might be let me get the vacuum out and vacuum this whole house. You know, so but don't leave and healthy distraction, right? Don't get a joint, don't get a drink, healthy distraction.
What about
Um,
my solitaire games on my telephone? There's a
yeah,
distraction.
that might work if you're having a really heavy panic attack. You might not be able to sit still and get to that. You know, that
Right.
might not be intense enough.
No,
So
it could be
also you want to notice your breath. The next thing is you might want to try to notice what the thoughts were that led to that panic attack.
right.
What are some of the thoughts that led to that, right? So those are some of the tools that people will use to bring down a panic attack. It's not always that easy, of course, once you're in the midst of that intense, because it's a physiological response. So, and again, it could have been brought up subconscious. Sometimes it's brought up for some people in their sleep, you know. So it is a physiological response. So, and you don't decide when or not you have a panic attack. So it's not as easy. Those are just some of the tools that people can use to bring it down. Um, yeah.
I think that that idea of like really opening up yourself and the first question saying, "Am I in danger?" And then, putting a stomach on your belly, you know, that's calming just in itself to have a I mean, I find that a calming thing, but to say, am I really in danger? And then begin to feel that breathing can be calming. But I think the other piece of that is that sometimes um, especially as women, a lot of times we're told, oh, it's just in your mind. If the elevator opens and there's only one guy on it and you look at them and your body says, get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be, but even still with that, it's like, am I in danger? No, but this guy looks creepy and, I hands on my stomach. So I'm, going to say calmly, oh, I forgot my purse, catch the next elevator, and,
Truly, truly. It's
and
not.
do
It's
that.
it's very, I find it difficult for some people to have to assess it. I have to talk about these reducing symptoms of panic with people who've had heart attacks. So that pain in the chest that they're feeling from that heavy breathing could be another heart attack. So sometimes it is difficult to assess whether it's truly panic or something you need to really respond to.
So it looks like you're home, Sandra, are you?
Yeah, I'll get inside.
So do you want us to let you go and get inside? Or are you going to take the phone with you or whatever?
I just take the phone with me.
Okay.
You can keep talking.
Okay. We'll talk amongst ourselves while you're getting yourself in the house.
No, I can keep talking to you. I do it all the time.
Okay. We'll let you do it then. See, she's got all the gear on her motorcycle so she can talk while
How
she's
did you feel
riding her
during that? Has anybody experienced this?
What? The panic attack? It is
If
a
you
good
feel comfortable sharing it.
I certainly it might have been done me some good today if I could have, said, hey, what's going on? And am I in danger? I mean, I think it was almost kind of like a sense of relief to be at the end of this. Well, Marcia said, yeah, I was driving in the city, so my life was in danger. But yeah, I like that. The idea of also going into the danger. So like confronting it, am I safe? What thoughts triggered it is also, I find, really helpful, because if you can identify the thought that triggered it, that gives you a chance to evaluate whether or not you're really in danger as well, I think. And one of the things I've also learned in the traditional Chinese medicine is that, we learn that beliefs create thoughts, thoughts create emotions, emotions create actions, and actions create health. So if I'm having an emotion, if I can think about what the thoughts and beliefs are, oftentimes that can be really helpful. And in Chinese medicine, take it from the physical symptom all the way back. Yes, Jill, you have a question.
Yeah, I think those are wonderful suggestions that Sandra gave. Several of them I wouldn't have thought of or been able to think about. But I think the hard thing for me would be at first, if I ever tried to implement these practices or even ask myself to breathe, am I really in danger? I think that would be very hard to get myself to that place to actually do that, because I'm so wound up in that mindset that getting from the mindset of feeling danger, perceived or real, to calming myself down is a very difficult process.
What about putting your hand on your stomach when you have that feeling? Is that something that, like as a first step before you go into the thought process?
I suppose if I'm in the street or in a store, I tend to get really self-conscious about myself. So if I stood there and started putting my hands on my belly, I think I just feel like self-conscious about what other people see. It's not something I'm proud of, but I don't know if Sandra can speak to that. How do you get?
Yeah, there are many people who will not go out because they're more embarrassed. They're more afraid to have the panic attack and being perceived as somebody who's losing their mind in the middle of a store than the actual panic, than the actual fear that caused the panic attack. That is a big problem. I guess the question is, it's something, it's a tool to try. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's a tool to try. If you're in the middle of the store and you start to feel this panic and you're with a friend and you say, just talk to me. We're going to stand right here. Just talk to me. Just keep talking. Keep talking. Give me a minute. Keep talking. So you do what you can. You do what you can. You use pieces of that and alter them in how you alter them so that they work for you. But the concept is to not leave where you are. Acknowledge that I'm having a panic attack. This is what's happening to me. I'm not dying. I'm having a panic attack. So you try it. It is not easy, but the point is try it. Otherwise, you're gonna not go out. You're gonna start, life is gonna become unbearable. It's gonna be too scary to go out.
Thank you.
Just one tool.
I just want to say that I've had panic attacks on airplanes and express buses. And both times I turned to the person next to me and said, I'm having a panic attack. Can you just help me get through this? Do you have any pets? And luckily, both people just started talking about their pets and they segued into their jobs, pets, and children. And before you know it, I forgot about it. I forgot about what I was anxious about because I really wanted to get over it. I think some people who have panic attacks have a vested interest in being panicked. I don't. And I just asked the nearest whatever. What do you say, Buzzy? I'm having a panic attack. I talk to the cat sometimes too, and I, I've had PTSD from 4 years of Trump. I totally admit it, and I live alone, so I will talk to my pets, and they couldn't care less, and that helps to kind of diffuse it because there is no real threat to me at the moment. It's just kind of a universal, a know me kind of thing, and I get over it.
None of it's easy. It's almost like saying, go lose weight. Stop smoking. Exercise. We know all this stuff is good for us, but do we just go do it? No. We do small things. Maybe I'll take one less helping the mashed potatoes. Instead of getting the fries, I'll get the steamed carrots. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't.
So true. So true. I think that's why I was thinking about so in the book Sustainable Health, it's simple habits, to transform your life. So if you can just think, okay, I'm going to put my hand on my stomach, or both hands on my stomach. I mean, it's kind of a normal gesture. It's not that, it's very unobtrusive, and it does, if you can remember just to do that little thing, it may be able to get you to remember, it calms you. Just to have that sensation tends to be calming.
And sometimes one thing worked really well. It's just like calming a baby. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes whatever triggered it or the environment that you're in, those things won't work. And then all of a sudden, putting a bag up to your face, which is the old way of, getting back to that breathing. You've heard that, right? Maybe that works that day. The point is that the body has gone into an automatic response, and to have the belief that you can start to work to bring that down, And there are lots of different treatments if a person does have anxiety disorder or panic disorder or PTSD. There's EMDR. Talk therapy is not very effective with it, but people will do lots of talk therapy.
Tell us about the EMDR.
There's medication. You can take medication for anxiety, which will help with the physical symptoms of it, but it doesn't take away the thoughts, the scary thoughts. So you're sitting on the pain, still thinking you're going to die, but you're not jumping out of the seat.
You've taken too much Ambien. No. But what about the EMDR? Tell us a little bit about that, because that's sort of one of the newer things, and a lot of times people hear those letters, but they don't know what they mean.
It's a rapid eye movement. I don't know physically why it works, but I actually did 6 months of training of EMDR.
Good for you.
Wow. 10 or 15 years ago, but it's a very interesting method of treating trauma, or really you can treat any kind of disorder, mental disorder with it, really, EMDR. But when we sleep, I guess the theory is that when we sleep and our eyes are darting back and forth during REM sleep, we're processing, we're reorganizing and making sense of conflicts or unresolved issues that we have in our mind. So if the therapist creates a very safe space and calm space so that the person can be artificially or consciously put into a REM state, they can process those issues. So first you teach the person how to get into that calm space. They call it creating a safe space, and the person will create what that looks like. It's almost like a guided visualization. I'm on the beach, or I'm in a wooded area, or I'm in a tall lawn. And then they can use a light bar where a light will go back and forth. Or you could just use your hand in front of somebody's face so that their eyes will track that and it'll mimic REM sleep. And then the person will say where their mind went during maybe a full minute of this or 30 seconds of this. And people will really, it's amazing to witness. People will find very quickly explanations of something that was plaguing them. I'll give an example. I had a lady who had been raped many times, many times. This was a professional woman who, when I met her, she was working for the fire department in an executive position in some state. But she was raped by a coworker, and she couldn't sleep at all at night. And the problem was that she had gone into an empty or a dark office to look at the skyscrapers. And the gentleman approached her from the behind. So she was always afraid to be in a dark room. But she didn't read, would always say, I don't know why I can't sleep. But through EMDR, she came to that understanding. But she would always say, I don't know why. I just can't sleep. But she came to that on her own during EMDR. So some people get to things. I don't know why it works, but they get to things. They figure out why they are just paralyzed by certain scary issues, related to a trauma. Also, another treatment they're using are psychotropics, right? You've heard of ayahuasca. They've actually, that's being funded now. I think you can do that. You can get that through your insurance and use a go on a trip basically to.
Does it cover the plane fare?
No, you don't have to go to South America now to do it. They're doing it right here in the States, but you can use these psychotropics to have a trip, and during that trip, people will get to the details of the trauma that are keeping them stuck. And for many of the military guys, it's been amazing. So there are a variety of treatments.
Cool stuff. Winterflower was asking about virtual reality. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, Winterflower. So I'm going to let you ask Sandra that question.
I know that there's times that I've heard that, virtual reality machines you put over your eyes, they will replicate whatever you are afraid of, say, for instance, elevators, planes, whatever. And instead of actually going, because I went for several years to a phobia clinic, and we did what was called in vivos.
In vivo, I was just going to say in vivo. Yeah.
Exactly. Didn't work all the way because I still get panic attacks under certain situations. But now I hear that they have an advancement rather than you go into the actual elevator or go to the plane or whatever. Now they can do this virtual machine and you can actually just go through the process that way. So I was wondering, is it used in practices a lot at this point?
No, I've been at it doing that for a while, so I don't know. I don't know, but I used to use that in vivo. And I use that sometimes if I have somebody who has to do an MRI, but they're too frightened, they're claustrophobic and they don't want to do the MRI. So what she's describing is you get the person to visualize being in that frightening scenario. So envision yourself at the top of the stairs and you're going to climb to the next level. And the next level is going to lead you to a balcony. And you're going to go closer to that balcony. It's in the third room. And you're going to go through that third door. And you're going to go near that balcony. We're walking towards that balcony. So, you take that person sort of they take themselves there and envision and, what are you feeling? Are you there? So that's that in vivo experience. But I would imagine using Oculus that you could, create that scenario for that person. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I don't see why it wouldn't work.
The imagination is an amazing thing. What
That's
about
it.
hypnosis? Do you know anything about hypnosis?
No, I don't know a lot about hypnosis. I know it's effective for habits, but I don't know about treating trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I did some EMDR kind of work with a therapist not too long ago, actually. And it was creating that safe space and then letting the imagination go to a fearful place. But we also created allies, who do you think of who would be most likely, most helpful, or who's the most wise? Do you have somebody or whether it's a real one or an imaginary one who is going to fight for you or going to love you unconditionally and that kind of stuff. So I don't know whether that's like a newer thing with EMDR or I know they've been working on with it for a while.
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies. They did mega studies on that in the last 10 years. But it's interesting because one thing about anxiety treatment, given that we're all prone, we all, in most cases, are going to have some type of traumatic something happen in our life. A lot of these anxiety treatments that are out there are very effective. They're very, very effective. I think more effective than they are for depression, much more. I mean, as far as mental health issues, much more effective than treating psychosis, right? We have a real hard time with that in this country. So yeah, a lot of these things, and that's why I enjoyed working with anxiety. You deal with somebody who just has been dysthymic all their life, or they went through situational depression. Yeah, that's going to fade with time. But when you got somebody who's just depressed like all of their life, you don't see that much movement. But when you have somebody anxiety and they come in and they've had 5 less anxiety attacks, they've had 5 less panic attacks, there's a lot more successes,
And they can see it better.
They can see it. There are a lot of people who say, oh, I used to have panic attacks, but I don't anymore,
So that's gratifying when you work with people like that.
Yeah, I thought it was better, easier. It's traumatizing. I know that 9/11 work really traumatized me. I heard lots of things about 9/11 that were very, very, very scary, and heard a lot of very scary things in my work there, and burnt me right out.
Yeah. I haven't seen it nearly what you've seen, but there's been a couple times people have told me stories that I never repeated because I wanted it to get out of my head.
Yeah. You really do. I just left a young girl who she probably in her early 30s. No, I don't even think she's 30, but she's dealing with breast cancer. But she found it because she had a nipple piercing that started to bleed. And so they checked it out, and it's not even a stageable cancer. It's almost like some spotted calcification that they're addressing. And so she's taken herself really around the block, reading everything that she can find about cancer, really causing her to feel pretty anxiety ridden with it, So we started talking about other people who have cancers. So sometimes hearing about somebody else's experience that's much worse than yours can sort of say, relatively, I'm kind of doing okay, because the lady I saw before her was 300 pounds and had over 100 stitches after they removed her vulva. So she was in such pain, she could barely function. So, Yeah, I made us all squirm as women, right?
Yeah.
She just sobbed the whole time I was there. We prayed and we just did everything we could just so she would feel a little bit more comfortable, and she'd stop crying and would laugh a little, and then she'd, would move a little and have this terrible pain. But how do people feel about that? When you hear about somebody else that's doing much worse to you, is that helpful?
God, yes.
Marcia says yes.
Oh, God, yes.
She said, "Oh God, yes." Yeah, I think I there's a website I go to sometimes, Chris Wark Beat Cancer, and he does interviews and stuff. And one of the things I really like about him is, I mean, he's more of an alternative treatment guy, although a lot of the people that he interviews have done, more conventional as well as alternative. But what I like about him is that everybody he talks to can tell, walk you from the horror story back into the light, so to speak. And I think that is a positive thing to hear about people healing. And so I look for those kinds of sites.
And that's one of the techniques that I tell people who are dealing with anxiety. Think it through.
Yeah.
You ever been driving in your car and say, what would happen if I run off this road into that ditch? Okay, think it through. All right, so I'm going to run off into the ditch. So there's nothing down there in that ditch. So I probably won't hit a tree. I might get in the water. The car might turn over sideways, but then I'm not going to drown because the water's not so deep. So they're eventually going to come, because there's so many cars on this expressway, that they'll find me soon enough. I mean, think it through. Think it through the whole thing. Okay, but then now I'm going to have the damn high copayment on insurance, and that's going to piss me off more than this broken arm I have. So it's a technique. Think it through. Think the whole thing through from beginning to the pissed off end. That's a way some people deal with trauma. Think it through.
Marcia, you want to say something? Why don't you just come over here
She's not.
Because
There you are, Mosh.
so the think it through thing is very effective, because I think I got a panic attack once that I know of that was related to when I had shingles real bad. But when I get into anxious situations, like with work or something, I do that think it through. I go, what's the worst that could happen? And I work backwards. And for me, that's magic, because it puts it into perspective so fast. And it just gets me back down to earth. And I just wanted to comment that you said that for me, and I know different things work for different people, but that works like a charm for me.
Yeah, there's so many techniques, and having faith that you can. Well, I guess this is the question. There are times when we can affect change and we're just going to be miserable. But I do find, even if this lady, I happened to be at that visit with 2 occupational therapists and her home attendant, and she just started sobbing, and they were all throwing tissues at her. Oh, you're gonna be okay. It's just a bad day. And I was like, no, let her cry. Let's pray. Let's cry. Just cry. And so if that's all you can do, just do that. Because interestingly enough, nothing lasts always. It just doesn't. The doorbell might freaking ring. The song might go off that made you crazy. Nothing lasts always. It's that simple. Even if there's no intervention, you're going to have to go to sleep eventually. But you can try to bring it down quicker, or you can just sit still, but try not to do things that are going to exacerbate it, like leave or drink or smoke or do something else that's going to make it worse. All right.
So I'm gonna, we're getting to the end here. I just want to open it up for questions. I know somebody asked about a dual diagnosis, but I'm gonna let people ask your own questions now.
Oh yeah, that was me that asked that one. I'm always asking questions. So like on your practice, dual diagnosis, because you were talking about anxiety, but like say for instance, a person is bipolar, they might have substance abuse to go with that bipolar condition. With anxiety, you were talking about also depression. You can have anxiety and depression and PTSD all layered. And So how do you peel the onion when you're dealing with all of these issues in your life? Like, do you take it one at a time? Do you, you know, address it as a ball, so to speak? You know, it's
You know,
basically, 'cause
interestingly
you-
enough, I think it's sad that we even have boxes to label people, because there is nothing that is totally pure. I mean, you know, how can we really, I mean, if you think about psychosis, it's all called schizophrenia, you know, or bipolar. It's all, the boxes are so huge that we put people in. And when I think about addressing anxiety, that's just symptom abatement, right? The anxiety is a symptom of something else, in my opinion. The depression is a symptom of some conflict or other issue that's occurring, you know, whether it be organic or as a result of an event. So I think you gotta first keep a person safe, right? If the person can't make money, if they can't keep a relationship that is necessary to their life, they're not safe. So we're going to address that, you know, from however it's manifesting in that life. So I like to, you know, whatever's killing me, that's what I'm going to work with first. You know, that's what I'm going to work with first. I mean, you know, I can't pick off, you can't pick off those things, you know? It's like somebody who has a heart problem and they have shortness of breath and they, no. Other, let's think of another disease, Susan, where the body's just starting to fail, right? You have to address whatever is the most life-threatening.
Right.
Yeah.
And it can change. I mean, one of the things I like about traditional Chinese medicine is they only work with 5 emotions. And in the compass, the anxiety is the one in the middle. And I always think of anxiety as kind of like the, you know, it's in the center. So you have fear and joy on one axis, and you have grief and anger on the other axis, and anxiety is right there in the middle, like churning it out, you know, digesting it, doing all this other stuff. And I think of shame more in the fear category, because the reason why shame is so awful is because shame is what happens to you when you're cut out of the pack, or cut out of the family, or cut out. And then of course, you know, we have this primal need, because we are social animals. You know, if you're not with your pack, you're in a lot more danger. So that's how I see that. But that anxiety in the middle, so it's almost like if you're talking about symptom abatement, for me, I think, okay, that anxiety is going to be my easiest way into all the other emotions in some sense. I don't know.
Sometimes it's as simple as somebody who drinks 7 cups of coffee a day. And it's like, could you stop drinking all this? It's too much coffee. You know? No, really. Sometimes it's 7 cups, really. You know, they're walking around with a big gulp coffee, and you're like, no.
Or soda, same kind of thing. Yeah, especially the caffeinated ones. Yeah. I think that, you know, that's one of the things a lot of times it really is, you know, like you were talking about the shortness of breath. Well, shortness of breath, air is going to be the first thing that, you know, you want to do. So if you can help somebody to get a little bit more, I mean, if you're in a medical situation, you can give people oxygen, but just getting somebody to breathe a little more slowly is going to bring more oxygen in as well. So
there's no fix all, I don't think. You know, mental health to me is just a field that just needs so much more work. You know, there's no physical test for any mental health disorder. Not one. No physical test. Now you can give them the medication if it works. Oh, it's that. You know, but
right.
there's no blood work. There's nothing. You can only observe it. In many cases, you don't have enough opportunity to observe a person who's acutely mentally ill. You just don't, you know? So there's no way to you work with what you got in hand, and that's it.
I remember being in my psych rotation and my internships when I was in occupational therapy school and I was graduating. And I remember sitting in a conference where the doctors actually said, well, the lithium's not working. So let's change the diagnosis so we can give this other medication and see if it works. And I thought, oh, this is really
The
good.
practice.
Yeah. But I think it's still that, done that. So working with the symptoms, working with what's right in front of you. I think that's what I hear you saying, Sandra.
Yeah. I mean, and what's uncomfortable to that person, because you might think it's something they need to work on and they don't. So,
So ask
they
them.
don't at all.
Right. Are there any other questions coming up? Because I don't want to keep, we don't want to keep everybody all night. So any other questions for Sandra? Well, thank you, Sandra, for being here with us and sharing your expertise. And
Thank you, Sandra.
Off mute, you can.
Thank you, Sandra.
so much.
I wanted to hear from you guys too. I kind of want, because I don't consider myself an expert. I consider myself thoroughly exposed.
What do you want to hear from us?
Yeah, what do you want to hear?
I like what you said, Jill, about I don't feel like I can actually do those things. And you're right. And that's what most people say. Do you feel like that you could try one of the things, or would you pursue? How can I make this less uncomfortable?
Well, I could pursue how to make things less uncomfortable, because I too am one of those World Trade Center survivors that saw terrible things and have some medical problems. And it got me into a PTSD with this COVID, feeling so completely helpless. And then with the 2 weeks ago, the taking over of the government. And I guess what I can say in answer to that, Sandra, was a very good question, is what can I do? So I need to turn off the TV and realize that I'm giving myself little anxieties and little PTSDs, triggers. So that's something that I can do. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to do it because it's in a way distracting, but it also makes me feel like knowledge is power. So if things are going badly with the government, I want to know it. But maybe I have to look at what it does to me in the long run and just say, I'm turning off the television. I'm going to turn something else on, or, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Not easy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You've been so helpful. The way you've explained things, you have such great energy. And I just wanted you to know that, really. It's been wonderful. I'm taking notes galore, and I'm really going to absorb what you said. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sandra does have excellent energy for sure.
It does.
Yeah.
And loads of it.
That's why I invited her, because I knew she would have a lot to say on this subject, and a lot of good. Over the years.
And because you ladies are here, you all have, I was like, well, you guys know, because you're working on yourself constantly. You're coming to places like this to learn more. So don't discount the knowledge. I'm probably just reiterating a lot of stuff you've already tried and done and known.
Well,
So,
It's always good to hear about it again, a different
Yeah.
perspective and a reminder. So thank you.
yes.
Thank you very much. And we'll let Sandra go. Probably you'd like to go get your dinner and whatever. And
actually, Rudy's standing here whining, so I think I better take him out.
oh yeah, he's got his legs crossed.
That's
probably.
I'm like, go outside. I open the door like, go outside.
All right.
All right. Good night, ladies.
So much.
Have
Good
a
night.
good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll see everybody coming up. So I guess in 2 weeks we'll be doing this again. I'm looking at seeing if I can get a maple syrup guy. We're going into spring now. We're going to be moving in to spring, and I'm gonna see if I can get somebody who makes maple syrup to come and talk to us about what it's like to
And if you can't get
run
him,
SAP.
I'll volunteer because I eat.
We need
Mark.
more maple syrup.
Huh?
We need to be talking about maple syrup more,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
This is healing. It's healing.
Okay, Marcia's volunteering to eat it, but I'm gonna see if I can find somebody to make it. All right.
Now, see, I have a poem, a brief poem about maple syrup.
Okay, here, let's hear
Well,
it.
I know, it's just a silly one of, what is it? Roses are red, violets are purple, sugar sweet, and so's maple syrup.
That's right. I heard that one. I
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
joke for you though, that somebody told me, because Marcia's having the knee surgery, and when they told it to me, I thought, oh, that sounds like one of Tamer's. Okay.
You poor child.
What has two knees and swims?
Two knees and swims. I don't know.
Toonie fish.
Oh, it's right up there. What did the frog say when asked how deep the water was?
What